It is again. What is it? Wednesday. Wow, Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. And yes, as I mentioned in the previous short little live stream, the last few minutes, Trump yesterday announced, after meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, they announced at the White House, at a press conference, and President Trump announced that he proposes to have the U.S. take over Gaza, the whole Gaza Strip, empty it of people, send them to Jordan, Egypt, and other countries that are willing to take them in, which he says there are probably, I think, up to a dozen or so that he said. Raze it to the ground, all of Gaza, except I guess maybe historical buildings, who knows, like archaeological buildings and things like that. And I guess, mosques or whatever that, may not be old, but you wouldn't want to destroy them unless they're in a decrepit state and they need to be rebuilt. And then rebuild the whole place as a luxury seaside resort. And as I mentioned in the previous video, the fact that it's even been mentioned or suggested by a president of the United States tells you a few things, right? First of all, it's a historic thing that a president would have ever mentioned that, whether you like it or not, like whether you like the proposal or you hate it. If you like the proposal, okay, well, you're on the side of probably a lot of people who like the proposal because it's a surefire way to put at least some kind of an end to that part of the conflict. If you remove the source of the fighting and the violence, well, then there isn't going to be fighting and violence coming from that particular location, at least not in any consequential level, especially if the U.S. will maintain security there by literally owning it as a U.S. territory and having U.S. laws govern the place, which means you can book your next flight to Gaza to a U.S. location if that actually happens. And if you're in the U.S., it means you don't even need to bring your passport. You would just need your passport to go into Israel, and that's it, or Egypt. But if you just want to go visit Gaza, if it's ever taken over by the U.S. and rebuilt as a U.S. territory, then you literally, as a U.S. citizen, would not need your passport to fly to Gaza and visit that western coast of the Middle East. So that's number one. Number two is, if you hate this plan, well, you can still visit Gaza as a U.S. territory as long as you have the right to, I suppose. And if you hate this plan because you think it's bad for Israel's strategic interest, look, there's an argument to be made for that. There's no doubt, right? Like, ideally, and from my point of view, is being here in northern Israel. Hello, hi there. Being here in northern Israel, I would say it's not necessarily the best plan, ideally. Like, it would be nice if the people of Gaza could just chill and be nice neighbors. But after so many years of just constant being attacked, no resolution in sight, name a better plan. Name a better plan that's actually going to lead to peace and prosperity for all people in the region. Israel has been waiting a long time and has offered many deals and even gave up its control of Gaza in 2005, 2006, 2005 to the people in Gaza and said to them, look, make of this what you will, make the best of it. They gave them, workable land, arable land, greenhouses, farms, whole towns and villages, settlements, basically, what people call settlements, which are really like nice little villages, nice little towns in Gaza. Beautiful houses and everything. What did the Palestinians there do? They destroyed it. Under the Palestinian Authority, they either destroyed it or left it intact. Nobody could enter. They kept it basically as ghost towns. They destroyed all the Jewish sites, all the synagogues, and everything else. Of course, they had to desecrate everything Jewish because that's how they are. And then when the Hamas took over from the Palestinian Authority, they did more destruction by shooting more rockets at Israel, launching multiple wars against Israel. And then, of course, culminating with the launch of the war on October 7th in 2023. And they refuse to end it, even with this ceasefire happening. So this is the price of fucking around and finding out. This is what happens when you FAFO too often. Right? And Israel has been warning the Palestinians of dire consequences if they would not stop. And Israel has said, we don't want to empty Gaza. We want people to be able to go back to their homes eventually. And there needs to be help in reconstructing the place, but we certainly don't want to empty the place. And now comes the president of the United States to say, actually, we want to empty the place. Not Israel, not Egypt. The United States wants to take it over by force if necessary, by sending its own soldiers there, it says, emptying the place, resettling these people in different countries where they'll supposedly be welcome, whether gladly or not, right? Where they would be resettled to. And frankly, many of them come from places like Egypt and Jordan. So especially the people in Gaza, they come from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. A lot of them lived in, not a lot of them, but some of them lived in Israel, or what was called British Mandate Palestine until 1948, when it became Israel, and then they fled Israel because they were told by their Arab leaders, when they still called themselves just Arabs and not Palestinians, they were told, leave, and you'll come back in a few days when we've won the war and killed all the Jews, and you can have all your property back, and you can take their property too. And that, of course, did not happen. The Arabs lost that war, and they were lied to. The people were lied to by their own leaders, and they were deceived by their own leaders. And for 76 years, they failed to hold their leaders accountable for that failure and that massive mismanagement and political mismanagement. And as a consequence, those who left lost. And especially those who left and clung to the notion of we will only accept defeating all of Israel and killing all the Jews, right? They lost. They lost that bet. And yesterday, when President Trump announced that plan, that was the seal on the deal that the Palestinians have lost in every single way. It doesn't even matter if they declare a surrender now or not. The fact that this proposal is even on the table means the Palestinians have lost. Because they don't know what are they going to do? Stand up to the United States? Yeah, good luck. If you think the Israelis have been inhumane and committing an atrocity or a genocide, you wait till the U.S. Army takes over. There will literally not be anything left of Gaza. They plan to raze the place to the ground. They plan to destroy it. Every building that is not some kind of historical building will be destroyed, and then the rubble will be cleared, and then the place will be rebuilt. And you can hate it, or you can love it. Honestly, it doesn't really matter if it happens. If it does happen, it is a game changer. 100%, this is a game changer. This changes the region. The fact that it was proposed changes the game in the region, because it shows just how powerless actually the Palestinians are, and they're not the big powerful winners of the war. Hamas's hand. Consequences even more than they already. How about losing their own land and losing literally all of their lives because they try to stop the United States from doing what it's going to do if he orders the soldiers to do that, and if they go and do that. Just has just stepped in and effectively won the war on Israel's side. It basically said, okay, enough of the fighting. Israel clearly has won this war kinetically. This fighting ends now. And the next phase of the plan is to empty out Gaza, raze it to the ground, and rebuild it as a luxury seaside resort. Which, again, you may hate that decision. You may think it's the worst thing in the world. But it is the decision of the sitting president of the United States. And there is literally nothing that can stop him from issuing an executive order that is sufficient to accomplish this goal. Now, you could say he needs an act of war to do this. He doesn't actually need an act of war. Presidents have sent military forces around the world and fought wars without declaring an act of war. And Congress normally goes along with it. And even if Congress doesn't go along with it, he has 100 days in which he could do whatever the heck he wants, practically, and see whether or not he can actually sustain his executive order or not. So this is not the win that Palestinians think it is. Not at all. This is very much not the win that Palestinians to yourself or not is relevant. Right? President Trump has just changed the entire landscape. It doesn't matter if you like the guy or hate the guy. It doesn't matter if you're whatever about him. You have to recognize that President Trump has just changed the entire game. Like, you can pretty much, okay, you can argue, hey, he's never actually built anything. He's never built any infrastructure in the United States. How's he going to build infrastructure in Gaza? First of all, it would take more than 4 years to rebuild a place like Gaza. Okay. It takes some years. But the procedures can begin during the next 4 years, and they can make a lot of headway. And yes, some things will be built within 4 years, but to rebuild an entire, strip of land like Gaza will take quite a lot of effort, and it'll probably take about a decade or two. But at the end of that decade or two, there's a very good chance, if the plan goes ahead, and if following, if the place is evacuated and it comes under U.S. management while Trump is in office, and the next president keeps it that way, there's every reason to believe that within 20 years from now, you might literally be able to fly to Gaza on your U.S. passport and visit Gaza and just hop into, fly into Gaza without passport if you're flying from as far away as Hawaii, which is literally halfway around the world from here. Right? And you wouldn't even need a passport. It's just another U.S. territory. And then it would be right next door to Israel. And you could literally go from Israel to the United States by crossing a land border. That's kind of mind-blowing, I have to tell you. That would be a historically different reality in the Middle East. Even if it never happens, this is the result. This is one of the consequences of the Palestinian extremists fucking around and finding out. You pushed Israel too far. You pushed Israel's, friends too far. You pushed Israel's allies too far. You pushed the United States too far. Current president, he's not having it. He's tired of the BS fighting in the Middle East, and he thinks he can solve this, whether he's right or wrong, whether you agree with him or not. This is a direct consequence of Hamas not agreeing to stop fighting Israel permanently and to make peace with Israel. And for the same thing for the Palestinian Authority, who, by the way, if you think that this can result in the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria getting all riled up and starting to do their own war from that side, you don't have to be too smart to realize what would happen if the U.S. is in charge of Gaza and it doesn't have any Gazans, the Palestinians left in it, and the Arabs left in it, and then the Arabs in Judea and Samaria start to do the same thing. What do you think would happen? And then you can say, well, then Iran would have no problem nuking Israel. Right. With a U.S. territory, Iran is going to strike Israel with nuclear weapons or whatever, when the U.S. would be situated in Israel. These people don't learn. The people who hate Israel, you don't learn. You're on the wrong side of history if you wish Israel didn't exist or whatever. You're on the wrong side of history. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. This is a consequence of FAFO. This is a consequence of Hamas fucking around and finding out, and all of their supporters, and also the Palestinian Authority. You've had decades and decades now, since the Declaration of Principles signed in 1993. You've had literally more than 3 decades now. What have you done? Where's the peace? Why is there no peace between Palestinians and Israelis? Because the Palestinians don't want peace with Israelis. Specifically, they don't want peace with Jews. They don't want to accept the fact that Jews live in their own ancestral homeland. Well, Jews come from Judea. Don't ever forget that. And Jews have the right to live in their ancestral homeland, just like every other person supposedly has the right to live in their ancestral homeland. So, there you have it, folks. Peace.